Talk to me about your relationship with Destiny or Steven.
Not that one.
That's a girl's name. He kind of brought about the online debate space as it exists right now. Which is remarkable. I don't know how much he's doing that now. I don't watch his content anymore. It seems like he does more like drama stuff. Like, I don't know if it's quite like...
That's all I do.
What's his name?
Vaush time!
How you doing? So I specialize in forensic clinical adolescent psychology. That's what I'm going to school for next year. So I'm kind of of the view of there's probably not a single group that we can't empathize with. And empathizing doesn't mean yes-manning their behaviors, but it doesn't try to like understand like what makes us who we are to some extent. And that's the goal of the humanizing, is to more or less humanize controversial figures. And as you know, you're a controversial figure, Vaush.
She misspoke!
Yeah, this is first time news. Would you prefer if I call you Vaush or Ethan?
Ian. Well, whichever's better for you.
Yeah.
I don't mind if you call me Ethan either. I'm very anarchic in that sense. No, you can call me whatever.
She misspoke again on the name.
Joke name between you and I.
Yeah, well, I mean, they go by.
You interviewed me.
Vaush, Vaush. Right. So people.
Vaush.
It's just part of the brand at this point.
A lot of people were shocked that you agreed to do this interview with me. They've basically said stuff about like you being on a fortress arc. What made you interested and open to having this conversation with me today?
Fortress.
Oh well, it sounded like it'd be fun. Unfortunately, I'm not that sophisticated. That's the main reason I do most things. The aversion that I've had to some kinds of online engagement lately is that some of them are kind of black pits. They're like, infinite regresses. For instance, the online left, known to have some contentious figures in it, not just myself. A lot of angry folk there. Arguing with them's fun, but if you over-fixate on it, you're not really adding anything new to the content. There's not really any additional analytic engagement taking place. You're just, yelling at folks, which gets less fun. So I've been trying to focus on being a bit more constructive lately. But good convos participate in, that's part of it.
Tell me a bit more about the Fortress arcs. You said there's some groups that are like black pits that you don't want to get into. What made you essentially decide to not engage in certain conversations or engage with certain people?
If you're a controversial figure, okay. So audiences are real big.
Let's go. What do we got?
They're always larger than you think they are.
Like
you're interacting with your chat or this or the other. You're only really seeing a tiny portion of the people who watch your stuff. And what I've noticed is when folks get controversial online, there are usually a couple
Thank you.
Like that.
Thank
Some
you.
Just plain ignore it, which is sometimes the right move. It's not for me, but sometimes it is. Sometimes, though, they get so involved in it that whatever was enticing about their content originally kind of falls to the wayside and stops being an emphasis of what they do.
True.
And that, I think, really sucks. There are channels that are given over entirely to drama, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, drama channels are...
Oh, like my channel!
But take ContraPoints, for example.
They call me a drama channel
ContraPoints has had a contentious relationship with the online left, at least to some extent. But imagine if every video that she did was like, took 2 weeks to produce and was basically just a clap back at all the people who were shit-talking her on Twitter the past 2 weeks. And all the broader stuff, all the like socio-political analysis and the cutesy gay art school bullshit, all that wayside, that suck. You lose something good there. So I've just been trying to focus on getting back to stuff that makes the channel, I don't know, a little bit more distinct, rather than just yelling at folks online.
Okay. What is your goal with your channel?
Well, I like political and media analysis the most. I like debates a lot, and I think debates are a really fun way of quickly getting at the heart of some people's political contradictions. But political analysis for me, that's the most fun. And I think debate without it is totally lacking. Of course, debate on its own is not a good metric for finding out who's right or who's wrong. It's a rhetorical exercise. Being right helps.
Rhetorical
debate, exercise. It's not the deciding factor. So without a good kind of like supporting interest in analysis, identifying social problems, learning how to fit them within given frameworks, look through them. If you can't do that, frankly, all of this is just,
find a good word.
Jaw exercise. Yeah. You need to be able to do that for any of the rest of it to mean something.
If you could wave a wand and everyone who viewed your channel would
turn
walk
into
away
a horse?
with one concept or idea that you think is really important, what would you want to be communicated to people?
Not that.
Probably never to essentialize. That's the main problem that I run up against. There's something you taught in sociology, at least I was in university, called the sociological imagination. The basic idea is that nothing is ever the way it is simply because it is the way it is. Every society around the world, the reason their culture is what it is.
That was so
the reason
deep.
they speak
Holy
what
shit.
They speak, their food, everything about them, everything about what we are and what we do, why the Nazis believed what the Nazis did, what we believe what we do. Nothing just is. There are always reasons. It always goes back. There's an infinite, like, recursive, analysis you can do going back to the beginning of time. You choose a point to start and you move from there. And if people forget that, you fall into these problems where people develop really essentialist.
Don't they essentialize DGGers though a little bit? Don't you guys think they do?
Why are white people like this? Well, they just are. But why are black people like this? Well, they just are. Men and women and so on. If people could not do that, I think that you would essentially upend reactionary politics overnight.
Would you say then that that's like one of your personal like ethics? Do you have like a set of kind of
ethics
concretized?
Do the consequentialism thing, Vaush. Please do it.
Sounds like a really good ethic, not just a good kind of like way to think about things.
Well, I don't believe in objective morality.
No simple answers would be like a good general motif there. If there were any simple answers to social problems, then there wouldn't be a need for any of this, of course.
Of course.
And that's not to say sometimes the solutions aren't.
Do the meme.
A simple solution can be backed by a really complicated answer. Rather just to say like there will always be people who are trying to sell you on the idea that everything is the way it is for very simple reasons, and like adopt
capitalism?
this worldview and like everything falls into place. And I just don't think that's fair or valid. I see leftists try to do that as well, and I think often they do so while misinterpreting leftist theory.
Please
so I just don't. It's just not a good
He's not
going to
do it, guys.
Always leads to bad analysis.
Do you think it's really important, though, to communicate? Because you kind of said, like, you can analyze things from a really complex lens, but you want to communicate in a more simple way. Do you think it's really important to communicate to, like, audiences more simple answers? Or do you think it's important to communicate?
For real.
How do you find a balance between
True.
I think it's possible to communicate really complicated ideas in simple language most of the time. One of the nice things about sociology is that you don't need technical definitions very often when you're reducing a subject down to its simplest point. When you're talking about something in the fields of like agriculture or engineering or physics, sometimes you have these irreducible points where it's like, okay, you need to know what this term means or you can't move forward. Most sociological terms are intuitive to us because we live in a society.
Are you Team Kizzy or Team
We know
Cap?
a lot of the
Kizzy,
basic
dude,
building
come on.
blocks around us, even if we're not that well educated in how they work. And because of that, we
even
have
a
to take
question?
advantage of this, right? We have to, if there is a medium through which you can get these answers across easily, I think you should try to as best as you can, but you should always kind of remind people like there's always a greater degree of complexity. Like there's always more to it, It's like that all I know is that I know nothing thing, where people get educated in a field, and when they get their PhD, they're like, well, I don't know anything about any of this. I'm a idiot. That's a good attitude to have. I think we should all have that on many issues.
Okay, so you like specifically kind of the political moralized element that's included within the sociological analysis of the world.
Yes, overwhelmingly. Not all professors are going to be like that, but the field as a whole is definitely tilted in that direction.
Oh, so he admits it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've talked to a lot of sociology professors and majors and stuff like that, and I feel like a lot of times they kind of deny that that's the case. Whereas like as somebody who's psych is obviously we do our best to be like as amoral as possible all the time. Like we're highly, highly clinical and very individual in our analysis. And it's interesting. I'd be curious if maybe, is that generally in sociology acknowledged that like, yeah, we're highly moralized and political in our analysis?
It's generally understood that the purpose of understanding something is so that you can change that thing. At least in the field of sociology. I think that there would be a political bias to psychiatry because your bias is towards psychiatric normalcy. The idea that there are like operating limits of the human brain, and if they go outside of that, then it's like you have like schizophrenics or people are unhealthy or self-destructive, So the bias would be towards self-care there, like a healthy life. And I think the same can be applied to sociology. Obviously, it's a bit more scaled up. What does a healthy society look like? Find 50 people, they'll give you 51 answers.
Quite.
But there are some general commonalities, right? The world that we live in is unfortunately not exactly bereft of like easy evil good examples. Genocides happen all the time. Like millions will die and the news will barely cover it sometimes.
True.
In a world like this, I think there are definitely examples you can point to and go like, what socioeconomic factors led to like the Rwanda genocide? and how do we keep that from happening again? And I think it's fine to approach things that way, because otherwise, if you could imagine a class where somebody was going over what led to the Holocaust, and there was no moralizing there, it was just, well, when societies have, political tensions that they need to resolve by scapegoating an ethnic group, it would come across a bit strange, because culturally we're used to associating the Nazis with the bad guys. And I think that's good. We should always remember that there's a reason why we're learning all this crap.
You like arguments.
Yeah, it's been known to happen.
You've always been disagreeable.
Yeah.
Yeah? Does that get you into trouble? Like, does that damage your interpersonal relationships, or what impact does that have on your life?
Oh, for sure. I'm holistically argumentative. That means with my family and partners and everyone else, too. Some people are fine with that, and those are the people I tend to get along the best with, and some people aren't, and obviously that was never really going to work out. Thankfully, my family tolerates it, and as I've gotten older, I've gotten a bit better at knowing how to place it, which arguments are worth having, I mean. Like, I would never argue with my grandpa or something, right? Like, what the point of that? Like, dude's 90 or something, I'm not gonna, why? But it's
so he's not morally consistent. Trait. That's what he's saying.
Frankly, I think that more people should be argumentative, One of the big problems that I've had interpersonally is that people tend to be very shy when it comes to their personal desires or beliefs. So rather than expressing them confidently, they kind of clam up and they don't really say anything. So you don't know where they stand on something. You don't know if they're getting upset or if they agree with you or whatever. That's kind of frustrating.
Relationship
I think
report.
People should be direct.
Do you have a hard time in general with kind of implicit stuff or indirect stuff? Cause I find a lot of people who prefer the more explicit stuff also tend to sometimes struggle in the more implied or unclear things.
For sure. Oh yeah, this is 100% an autism thing. Absolutely. I try to get folks to be direct as possible when I'm talking with them because I hate ambiguity of any kind, when interpersonally or in debate or anything like that. But I think that's holistically good, though. I think even people who are neurotypical would benefit from people being more direct with each other. I mean, how many rom-coms, the normiest of all genres, right? How many rom-coms are sort of predicated on miscommunication between people who don't like each other or do like each other or something, right? Clearly it's a problem we all suffer from. So directness is good, I think.
Right. So when you speak about the autism, when were you diagnosed? It sounds like there's a legitimate diagnosis there.
Wow.
So when did you get diagnosed with autism?
That was it must have been 6 or 7 or something. Actually, the interesting thing is I didn't get officially written down. The gist of it was that at the time, because of Beverly Hills school district policy, if you got diagnosed with something like autism or ADHD, you got automatically referred to the special needs courses, which wasn't deemed necessary for me because I was doing just fine in the classes, So my parents was like, "Hey, why is my son hit my head, And the doctor's like, "Oh yeah, it's definitely autism, but if I write you up, this will happen probably." And my parents were like, probably not. We're not going to do that then. So it's just been sort of the undiagnosed diagnosis since then, which has been sort of reinforced every mannerism that I've engaged in since. But I'm happy that they didn't go through that because them special needs courses are fucking terrible. They are 100% about finding a box to throw different kids in. That's super fucked up.
Hold on, I'm sorry. I'm just kind of memeing this whole interview. You should investigate the special needs courses at your own schools. If your child needs to be in a special needs course, it's not like movies in the 60s where they're going to throw him in an ultra special ed class and he's for the rest of his life. If you have a child with special needs, that just means that they need some sort of other attention in order to function properly in a classroom setting. If you avoid putting them in a special needs course and you try to just put them in a regular classroom, you're condemning them to a life of fucked upness. Be really careful about oh no, my kid's not special, I'm keeping him in normal class. Okay, well, now his school is going to be harder, now it's going to be harder for him to make friends, now he's going to feel even more about himself when he can't keep up with normal students. It's not just because you're special ed also they're going to hold you back or anything too. So again, sometimes you might just need a little bit extra instruction between classes or something. Don't ever be afraid of special education classes for a child. It's really, really, really important.
Did you find that there was many interpersonal issues that arose for you that you laid at the feet of autism, or what was that experience like?
I was really bad at understanding other people's intentions for a long time. I got better at it just sort of over time, just through the natural process of sort of self-education. And I got a lot better at it when I started streaming, because it's actually really difficult to be autistic when you're streaming, because all your behavior is getting like micro-scrutinized constantly by a huge audience. So if you do anything that's even a little bit weird, you'll immediately be made aware of it, and you'll try to it's very rapid education there. So that's helpful in a way. But earlier on in my life, I was really bad at reading people's intentions, and I was just a giant cringe lord, just a full-on like fedora tipping atheist type, like libertarian, like the whole archetype.
Madam?
You know what I mean? Yeah, like just an utter buffoon, you know. But I owned it very confidently, which, you know, I think that's important, right? Because for me, I wasn't doing it because I thought it would make something of me. I was doing it because I was authentically that cringe. So, you know, at the very least, it was a direct expression of my, my divergent tendencies there. It didn't exactly earn me many friends up through high school, but, you know, as long as you make your way through that process feeling reasonably self-confident, I think that's okay.
What are some of your other like personal guiding ethics?
Oh God. I mean, if we go back to axiomatic values, I don't know how well I could run those through, because I feel like nobody can concretely define their own axioms. They can just kind of gesture at a space where they exist.
True.
Gesture for me.
True, Vaush.
Well, I mean, obviously I want people to be happy. I want everyone to be happy, regardless of how much I agree with or disagree with them. You know, the ideal world is in which everyone is happy, you know, hopefully.
Can I ask you why, before you go on, why do you want everyone to be happy?
I guess well-being would be a better word to use than happy. But I think I have kind of an epistemic bias towards consciousness as a value.
True.
And if consciousness is a just sort of an evolved decision-making apparatus, you know, and well-being or happiness are the ways in which we're neurotically rewarded for doing things well, you know.
Right. Okay.
I guess my universe is anchored towards that.
True.
Like that to me is the good. Like the process by which we make decisions that benefit ourselves and others is the center axle of the clock of the universe, and everything around that, you know, just kind of has to be built outwards. And that's a totally arbitrary preference on my part, of course. I could never justify that beyond metaphysical, you know. Yeah.
I mean, that's the point of metaphysics, is like fundamentally all these like core, this is why you can't describe them well, as you said, it's like most of our like core essential like values break down to more or less like somewhat circular logic, or kind of like fifis, basically.
Exactly.
Like, I feel like it would be good if everyone could be happy, right? Which is simple, but true.
Past a point, you know, there's only so much you can do. Nobody's solved philosophy, thankfully. And I think most people are kind of in that ballpark as well, as in they have a fundamental bias towards human well-being. They don't always define well-being in human the way I do. But
what do I do with
think
insight?
That's just a recurring fact of human nature, is that we seem, by being social animals, you know, we seem to gesture in that direction. And I think that politics is just a system by which we try to maximize that, if any, you know, values.
Right.
So
happiness, well-being of all people. Right?
Much as you could hope, yeah. I guess beyond the basic don't essentialize, I have a very strong bias towards like freedom as a concept, or self-determination, which I'm very fond of.
Okay.
It has to be. It's not a perfect belief, of course. You know, I don't believe in lawlessness, for example. But stuff like that. I think if you work within a couple of very basic tenets, you can build out a pretty functional ethical and political system.
Oh, quite.
Yep.
Indubitably.
So freedom, self-determination. How do you feel about? Because a lot of people will also say things like truth or justice. Do you care about any of these, like kind of like lofty, again, circular ethical values, or what are your feelings about things like that?
Yeah, well, I think that justice must necessarily be a subset of the well-being, and truth must necessarily be a subset of the freedom. I don't know how any group of people could consider themselves free if they don't know what's going on around them, right? The more truthful the information they're exposed to, the better they have the ability to make decisions. If, you know, all the information they're exposed to is completely controlled or inaccurate, they're not really free. You know, the decisions that they have the ability to make are being chosen for them by the people with the info. So yeah, I would have strong biases towards those things as well.
What makes you happy in like a simple way?
Long conversations with friends, I suppose. That's the main thing. That's the predominant interest on my part.
whether it's a romantic partner or not is immaterial. If they're a friend and I'm having a long conversation, I'm usually quite happy.
Same.
But I think in a broader
Based.
sense, it's really just about wanting to do something and then doing it. I think we live very long-term lives now. When we were out there fucking under canopy leaves and cracking open coconuts with rocks to drink the water inside, we planned out a week. Our planning did not go very far. Plan for winter, whatever. But nowadays it's all, what do you do after school? What do you do with this? Retirement, save for this, that. But I think there's a lot of value lost in the simple pleasure of simply wanting to do something and then doing it, with all the restraint and self-control of a dog or a child. If you wake up and you want to do a thing, you can just do that thing. If you want to go outside for 2 minutes and then walk back in, you can just do that thing. I think people have like this innate, maybe it's not innate, they have like this this aversion, I think, because they have a plan, right? Everyone has a plan. There's a thing, there's a set of things they need to do that day.
They're schemers.
And I think they stick to it sometimes.
Where's the
with so
Joker
much
guy?
Tenacity that they forget that they're going to end up spending like 3 hours today staring at their phone anyway. You could just take a tiny bit of that time and just do the exact thing you want to do at that moment. Be fully impulsive. Don't hurt yourself or other people, of course, obviously, but the impulsiveness, I think, it's an innate part of how we're supposed to be acting, and I think it's kind of discouraged, maybe socially. I don't know if that's a universal thing, or maybe if it's more so the case here or more so the case in other places, but I think it's good to be able to be impulsive.
I want to ask you some of the elephants in the room that I think everyone really wants to know. Talk to me about your relationship with Destiny or Steven.
Not that one.
That's a girl's name. No.
That is a girl's name.
I watched him way back when. Like, I must have been 17 or something when I started watching him. Before he did politics or anything, it was just StarCraft back then. And I liked StarCraft a lot too, so that helped. But anyway, obviously, it'd be kind of silly of me to pretend that, I would have gotten into the streaming were I not a fan of his. Because obviously, if you're a fan of a live streamer long enough, you'll think, oh, well, hell, that looks fun.
Right.
When I started streaming too, it was crossovers from his community that were, visiting and donating and such early on, which was what sort of prompted me to take it more seriously and eventually ramp up and get a community of my own. So, yeah, no, it was
that felt when you don't get deleted from
bedrock
history.
upon which the fortress got built.
How integral would you say that Steven and because you guys were, from my understanding, good friends as well? Like as you were growing as a streamer.
Oh no, we were never friends. Don't let her get away with that one, Vaush.
It seems like you guys kind of mutually shared platforms, collaborated. I don't know, in my experience, just to make sure your audience is fully aware if they've never seen me before, I'm very much like in that sphere right now. Steven is absolutely supporting my career. I would say dominantly owe my career to him at this point.
Yes.
And it's kind of growing
based leverage.
With my own work as well. How much of that was true for you? And I'm saying that so that your audience is aware in case they're like worrying that I'm like trying to hide that and not show my cards or something like that.
No, I get you. The Destiny's Jobs program was still well in effect when my career kicked off, but we really weren't friends. I know this is turned into some kind of like back and forth like contention or whatever, but we never really talked that much. I think the extent of our interactions were, it began when he was streaming on some Gamergate-related Anita Sarkeesian feminism thing. I think he was talking about like the definition of feminism as used by a subreddit called Reddit Says, which used to be a very relevant feminist Gamergate era subreddit. It was a while back. Anyway, his Skype handle was public, so I spam messaged him a bunch and argued with him for about it, and I must have sounded awfully nasally back then, because I was just so young. My voice deepened a lot, like past puberty finishing, and I argued with him a good bit past that point.
Would he have been in his teens back then, or early 20s? I don't know how old Vaush is.
I think he DM'd me one time to wish me a happy birthday in the like 6 or 7
Oh
years.
Shit, the first time I talked to him, I think he would have been like 19.
So much as me admiring his platform and his debate talent, which of course he obviously
17?
has.
When did we talk? 2013?
And
maybe it was
and of course
earlier than
I'd be annoying in his
2013.
chat a lot.
What was our first
And he
talk?
banned me
I don't
from his
remember.
chat a couple of times too, because I was a big feminist way back when.
2012?
So I was annoying in his chat to the point where his own mods would ban me just for being there. But one of his mods was more sympathetic to me, so wrote some code to get me auto unbanned whenever they would ban me. Like I would say something pro-feminist, and then they'd ban me, and then I'd like pop right back up, and they didn't have like the admin code or whatever, so I would just sort of be there, invulnerable.
Base.
And then I think past a point I annoyed the hell out of Destiny, and he banned me, and of course I just got immediately unbanned because he just used the regular ban feature on me, and he got increasingly angry on stream as he banned me like dozens of times in a minute. Before, like, finally, eventually, he realized what was going on. And
Wait, did this happen? Is this a real
I might
thing?
have just left, actually, because past a point, it was like I was just sort of standing.
I don't
there
think you'd make it up. I don't remember
while
this.
he was like smashing the keyboard or something. I have no. This happened so long ago. That's how I remember it happening, though. And that.
I'm not accusing him of lying. I don't think he would just make that up. I don't remember that at all.
So I've just been kind of like living in the walls of the DGG community for a good while until like 2019.
Okay. So in your view, did he like help promote your career at all, or was it more like your own self-work within his space?
Well, a lot of it was just the convenience of having people in his community who already knew me. So even if he never did or said a thing, like it still would have been his platform that allowed for my platform to kick off, I don't think he promoted... he might have a couple of times. I don't know if he promoted me so much as like I was considered like a favored chatter of the stream. So there might have been a couple of times where it was like, oh yeah, he's over there doing his own thing. I don't think there was like any collaboration, but I could misremember that. There might be stuff I don't remember.
I don't remember.
That's fair. So you would have never considered him like your personal friend or anything. So when people talk about like the burning of the bridge or the fallout part of the relationship, it sounds like the conception of the public, at least, is that there was some level of like kinship and friendship, and that is now over. Would you say that that's a correct narrative, or would you disagree with that on your side?
No, I think that was deliberately dishonest on Destiny's part. I don't think
deliberately.
I didn't him. I considered him like a content creator that I respected, and there was definitely like a parasocial thing there. Like I watched him for like a decade, of course, but for me, like from my side of things, when we fell out, to me it felt like the parasociality was on my part. Like from my perspective, it was me liking him less, and that meant something to me. And it felt like, but it didn't feel like a two-way thing, if that makes any sense. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have made sense for him to go, oh, I've disappointed you, haha, how dare you feel that way. It didn't feel like there was a justification for some kind of mutual sense of betrayal there. But I don't know. It was the messiest and most protracted series of disagreements I've ever had on this blighted platform.
Base.
For most people that I argue with or disagree with, it's usually pretty straightforward, but I think he kind of revels in disagreeing with me, which turns it into this interminable process, which is why I mostly don't engage with him no more.
True.
So you don't think by any chance like he was just like hurt or something like that?
It's totally possible. I don't want to like
cringe.
I just
Absolutely
remember a couple of
not.
specific times when the ways that he was talking about like trying to argue or prove that we were friends or whatever, that felt kind of weird to me. Like we never chatted or anything.
I wouldn't say we were like close friends, but like we were definitely like friendly. Maybe I'm just autistic like Vaush. We went out to eat that one time when he came in debate, but the thing is that like we don't have anything in common to do. There's not much for us to like. Yeah, we did like 2v2 debates, but it's not like we played games together. I don't even know if he plays like multiplayer games.
I don't know how you can be friends with someone without casually chatting, especially if you've been each other GMs for years.
I don't casually chat.
Seems
with
like
anybody.
kind of an odd definition of friend to me. But again, I was never really gunning to be the man's friend. I liked his streaming. I liked him as a professional. I respected him. So that was more the nature of the relationship to me.
When kind of all of that fallout happened, I believe, in my understanding, it was about like the Kyle Rittenhouse stuff, and your girlfriend and like a head mod made a clip of him or something like that.
How much longer is this going on for?
Fallout on, at least as far as you understand it?
I know that was a big part of it. I don't even remember. I think it was like I had a roommate who reposted a clip, who isn't a mod, but reposted a clip on Twitter. And during a live stream chat, my partner at the time said that some of the stuff Destiny was saying was TOS, which it ended up being because he got banned for it.
I didn't get banned for it. Not true.
Or something. I think that was, I don't know, that thing got blown out into such a gigantic like cry bully kind of deal or whatever. There was a lot of wacky behavior going on there, I'll tell you what. I wish I remembered all of it though. See, kind of a problem here is that, again, if I remember the reasons why I don't get along with any other online creator, there's usually like 1 or 2 or 3 events that I can kind of nail it down to. But the Destiny thing was like this years long, like everything blown up and like, here, have a debate on a debate on a debate on a debate on this issue turns into this issue. And do we argue over whether or not these 2 people talking about the recollection of this event? I don't have the memory for this. I genuinely don't. I remember things being genuinely pretty wacky back then, though.
At the beginning, we talked about like there's certain people that you don't want to engage in with anymore because it's kind of like a black tar pit. Does Steven now fall into that category for you? Somebody you just don't want to interact with?
He's the blackest tar pit by far.
Hell yeah, I am, brother. Hell
really
yeah.
Revels like it to a weird extent in the disagreement. Like not even necessarily in the disagreement. It's the what would the right term be? I don't know, man. It just feels kind of emotional for him.
Cat Blaque was the biggest recent drama that you have. Was the Cat Blaque drama, was that before the Fortress arc started, or where was that in kind of the chronology of
I think
your
that made the
career?
Fortress arc happen. I think that was what created it. Do you want me to run through it?
Sure. Yeah, just for those who maybe don't know what it is.
Yeah, okay, so basically the gist of it is that I said some like random, like mildly sexist thing about J.K. Rowling some time ago. I said something
It's like women sit down and be quiet or something.
Yeah, women
like
shut
that.
up or something, because I said some comment about how like she's tarnished her legacy, by being a transphobe or whatever, like second grade, like CS:GO lobby tier sexism, whatever. Anyway, she quote tweeted that, or no, she screenshotted that, and then she made a big thing of it, and then I made fun of her in her comments, and news articles were written, and people made, it was a whole thing, right?
Yeah.
A little while after, Cat Blaque did a big Twitter thread, and she does big Twitter threads. That's what she does. She does giant Twitter threads, just her preferred method of communication. About how, I'm not going to name any names, but how do people feel about male allies weaponizing sexism to defend trans people? It was about me. And I had previously actually had an okay discourse with Cat Blaque in the past, so I DM'd her. And I, it was like late one night, and I was thinking maybe I can salvage one relationship, in the online left. And I was trying to explain to her how, like, it's not about the sexism in the original message that I made on Twitter, the original tweet. It's kind of weird to me how the follow-up to that was like, J.K. Rowling was in shambles. Like, I was making fun of her, articles were getting written, and for a lot of online lefties, like, the lesson they took from this was that I enabled transphobia because TERFs are transphobes because cis men say sexist things.
One of the things that I hate is when somebody can't verbalize somebody else's argument. Even if you think it's stupid, at least like verbalize it well. The problem, I got a lot of emails over this. I got an email from a turfy woman, actually, a really, really, really long one that I read, but I don't remember half of. But the issue was that trans people making fun of women or attacking cis women is one thing. Trans men making fun of cis women is one thing. Women fighting women is another thing. But cis men weaponizing trans issues for the explicit purpose of being misogynistic is like the ultimate, like, fire, like gas fire, whatever, to like light a fucking feminist, like a turfy feminist, like a blaze. Like, it's like the most ammunition you could ever give to somebody that is worried that like trans issues are going to be like weaponized to like destroy women's issues or whatever. That was why I was notified. And you got to be careful when you're dealing with like British turf people, because that's like Turf Island is like the UK. I don't know why, but like so many turfs like come from the UK. Like if there's ever like if somebody online is being transphobic, they're either from Kiwi farms or from the island of Great Britain.
There was the message was totally off. And again, like, this is so in the weeds. Like, I could spend an hour, but to be very simplistic, I tried to like indicate to her, like, it's not about like the sexism, it's about like the attitude after the fact, like, what do you focus on after? And she was like a huge bitch to me in DMs, like massive bitch. But I, arrogantly, assuming that with my giant brain, my wrinkly brain, I could convince her anyway, despite her being a giant bitch. I like talked with her for like 40 minutes, and she was essentially just like calling me like, white boy, I'm not going to listen to you. How dare you? So on, so on. You know how unproductive this gets. At the end of all of that, I go to bed. The next day, she types up like a 1 billion tweet thread, including all
for the tropical storm coming.
Herself and me that
nope,
she
good luck.
leaked, where she looked like an asshole, and I was like earnestly trying to explain to her, like ignoring her insults, and like a whole thing. And then there was this protracted Twitter thing, and then like she leaked that we used to sex with each other, and it was like this whole thing, and it was like hundreds of tweets, and then a manifesto was written afterwards, and so anyway, my ending theory here is that she's obsessed with me, and haters stay mad, and that was fucking crazy, and that 99% of online drama is like psychosis manifesting through political language.
ContraPoints got involved in this, correct?
Yes, she's friends with Cat Blaque, so Contra came in there and hypocritically did the exact thing that people did to her, which like drove her into like opium abuse.
Like when Vaush hypocritically did the exact same thing to me. Yeah.
Which is like she essentially
we all do it.
Said like, well,
welcome to the lefty
with Cat Blaque
online crazy sphere of doing dumb shit all the time to each other.
That's essentially what she said, and that's what other people said to her, because other people were like, "How ContraPoints? How could you, binary cis person or not cis trans person, speak over us?
What people's issues?
Speak over us, non-binary, whatever. Like it's the infinite
lefty fighting
oppression Olympics, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, she stepped in. She said some dumb shit. I disagreed with her. I DM'd her, and then she blocked me, and that's been the end of it.
Okay, so those bridges have all been burnt firmly.
Yeah, probably pretty irreparably, which sucks. I don't think Cat Blaque's content has any value at all. Contra's obviously does, so I still encourage people in my audience to watch her. Lord knows I do.
Okay. Does that one bother you then, the Contra one, because you respect her so much?
Yeah, that one really sucked. Normally pretty resilient to this stuff because it happens so much, but yeah, that one was pretty bad.
Aww.
I don't regret how it turned out, because I think the way it ended up was kind of an authentic representation of my values. Like I was principled. I didn't back down. I'll never back down because I'm friends with somebody. I've never done that in my life. So I'm happy that I did that. I guess I would rather be the me that I am in this situation than be like the person who compromised and like lied to save a friendship. I'm happy I'm here, but damn, it still really sucked. The problem is like she's so obviously wrong on this. It's hypocritical. She's made videos where she denounces the behavior she engaged in. She admitted in the tweet interactions that we'd had that she did not read the messages between myself and Cat Blaque, which means she literally did not know what my argument was. And so, it's pretty unfortunate. But the nice thing is that there are only so many bridges that you can burn, right? Eventually, you do run out of people to have a falling out.
That's true. And then you have an island.
Exactly.
A fortress, one might say.
Did burning the bridge with Stephen, did that suck for you? Like, were you kind of disappointed?
No.
And you whatnot?
It wasn't really a mutual thing like that. The bridge burning with Destiny wore out its welcome, like 1% of the way into the process of the bridge burning down. It was like trying to burn down the Golden Gate Bridge with like a sparkler or something like that, or like it took way the. I guess it's unfortunate that he is the way he is now in almost every sense. But like that was, he I guess he made that as evidently not something that I could feel bad about as possible, like pretty early on. The Contra thing was just the one day though,
That's just my autism,
like
guys.
2 years
I'm neurotypical, by the way.
Psychotic at me or something through their platform, then maybe I would probably feel different about that.
I think it's because you and Steven are similar on like one really important aspect for interpersonal tension, which is neither of you ever back down. Yeah, and your beards.
Oh yeah, well obviously in that respect, I wouldn't have liked Destiny for so long and watched his content for so long if there weren't some like character similarities there, right?
Right.
Yeah, of
and some
beard, of
respect
course. As
well, right? Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's he kind of brought about the online debate space as it exists right now. Which is remarkable. I don't know how much he's doing that now. I don't watch his content anymore. It seems like he does more like drama stuff. Like, I don't know if it's quite like.
That's all I do.
What's his name? The gnome.
Keemstar. What is up?
Oh, it's the guy with the pointy beard. The other gnome. Keemstar, right. I don't know if it's the other gnome. Right, I don't know if it's like that tier or whatever. But it seems like it's pretty drama oriented. Obviously, Contra's doing like the same thing now that she has been for years prior, and I hope she keeps it up. You know, I've always thought she's the best video essayist of the RedTube space.